All right, today we're diving in headfirst into a conversation that will make you question everything you thought you knew about living life to the fullest. We've got a real estate dynamo, a legal eagle, a visual storyteller extraordinaire, and did I mention she's also a goat farmer? That's right. We're talking about the one and the only Noelle Nielsen. Born and raised here in Minnesota in the land of 10,000 lakes, this hardcore Minnesotan is redefining what it takes to be the jack of all trades and the master of everything. With a law degree in one hand and a camera in the other, Noelle is the mastermind behind Minnesotan Homes, where she doesn't just sell homes, she crafts dreams, negotiates like a boss, and turns real estate transactions into masterpieces. Please welcome to the show, Noelle Nielsen. Noelle, thanks for joining me here today.
Oh, thank you. I need you to write all of my intros everywhere I go and follow me around.
I mean, I could be your PR person. We could probably make that happen, don't you think?
I mean, how much do you charge?
We'll talk about that after the show. Deal?
Yep, that sounds good.
You know, we could take this a number of directions. You are you carry many hats. Let me just kind of throw you for a loop here right off the top. Who is Noelle? How would you describe yourself?
I'm just a girl. Just a girl with a dream from Minnesota. I mean, that's a good question. And you referenced it actually in your intro, which, man, I'm going to have to go back and write that same intro for my bio. I am a bit of a Renaissance woman, I guess, jack of all trades, if you will. There was a saying the other day that came into my Instagram feed. It was a popular meme that was rolling around on people's audios, and it was, the jack of all trades is a master of none, right?
I've heard that, yes.
But it then goes on to say, but better to be a master of many than just a master of one, right? Because there's so many different things out there that you could choose to pursue. And why just stop at one thing if you've got multiple interests? Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of been my philosophy in life from the time that really I graduated from high school and started at college. It was just really trying different things. I mean, I think I had a couple different majors even in college. And I've just kind of lived life that way. If there's something I want to do, I just try to go and do it.
I think I tried to answer that same question for myself. I think we're cut from the same cloth. I think that's why we just kind of vibe, with one another. It's easy for us to have a conversation of an hour plus because we kind of are on the same wavelength. If I have to answer kind of who I am, I'm really, at the end of the day, I'm really a storyteller, and that can hold many capacities. Who are, in your most authentic form? When are you clicking on all cylinders? How would you describe that?
Oh gosh, you're so right. And storyteller is so right on the money. I heard this thing the other day about how in historically, biblical times, the people that were the most well-known were the ones that were the best at telling stories. Mm-hmm. This morning I found myself, I wake up every day and start in the Bible, which may or may not be for some people. And if it's not for you, wake up and start with some sort of filling your cup before you head into your day. But the first 5 books of the Bible were written by a master storyteller, Moses, right? And Moses was kind of the guy back in that day. He wrote the whole Pentateuch, or the first 5 books of the Bible. And that historically has been in society, really, who is able to get the eyeballs, get the attention, are the people that tell the stories. Mm-hmm. And when I graduated from law school, my plan was to be, this attorney that was going to go out really and tell stories of others to go see justice served. What I quickly realized was that being a lawyer was really sitting behind a desk, reading dusty old books and drafting memos for the partners. And I was bored out of my mind. And so I picked up a camera to have my creative outlet that I needed. Yep. And the company that I had at that time, I named it Fishtail. And the whole thing with a fishtail is telling a big story, right? And the idea behind the brand was that the actual tagline was Tales of Life, Tales of Love, because my whole thought was I was going to tell these people's stories through their pictures. Mm-hmm. And honestly, the whole starting this out with storytelling, people would think that we, pre-wrote this podcast, but we didn't. That to me, storytelling in whatever you do, and with the use of social media at our fingertips now, storytelling is so powerful. And the biggest influencers are the ones that are the best at telling their stories.
Yeah, no, 100%. If you don't realize that, if you don't believe that, just flip through Instagram and look at like all the people who are like just crushing it on social media. They maybe are selling something, but really what they're doing is they spend a lot of time just trying to connect. Because I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong and give me your take on this, but like when we're operating at our most authentic form, that is where the greatest connection lies, which is also the best way. And this podcast isn't about selling, but really, if you are in the business of selling anything, which is the point of business, like there needs to be that connection made. You know what I'm saying? There needs to be that hardcore connection made with authenticity.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. The whole backstory of my brand really always goes back to being authentic. No. And to being the most genuine that you can be wherever you go. In fact, this morning, this is probably my third Zoom of the day. And on my first Zoom this morning, I was doing a training for a group of agents and talking to them about how I initially had success in real estate. Yeah. And what I did was I took that same camera that I referenced and I ended up telling stories of people's home sales, telling stories of the houses, telling stories of what I was doing as an agent. And that way of marketing really took off. And that was, probably about a decade ago, before we had shorts and reels and TikTok and all that stuff. But I was using the tools I had available to me, using social media to take those moments and put it out there online. And that was marketing. And I wasn't even trying really to market. I was just trying to tell stories.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's a great word for people to understand, whether they're starting a business, getting into the business. Like that was edgy at the time, like where you'd go out and like share somebody's story. But like, if you don't know what to share, start there. Like literally, like start telling your story. It's interesting because even I have like a personal speaking and business coach who's helped me kind of tailor my message. And there are some of those old stories, Noel, that like I've tried to kind of like bury the hatchet. Like I'm not a TV weather guy anymore. Like I don't want to talk about that. And he's like, Jared, people want to hear that story. And I think that some of those stories, to your point, Moses, I mean, thousands of years ago, those stories still should be told today, right?
And I would agree with what he told you. You have to go with that. You have to own that as part of your story. Right. This morning when I was doing that training, I also talked about how I accidentally ended up branding myself as a goat farmer, which you referenced that, right? And that's a part of my story. Whether I want people to see me as a luxury real estate salesperson or a goat farmer doesn't really matter because it's a part of my story. It's how you show it that matters and what you show and where you share. Yeah. And I think for you owning that, oh gosh, if I had that in my background, I would own that all the time. I would be going outside and giving fake weather reports because I wouldn't be able to get it out of my blood.
We'll see. I'd still get blamed for the weather no matter what. That's why I try to shy away from it if I can. But you bring up a really good point. There's certain people that I follow and I don't say emulate, but I watch. I see what they post, and the people who are doing it right. It seems like we live in the age of a personal brand. Like I am Jared Sebesta Inc. You are noelnielsen.com. You know what I mean? Like you are the brand. Yep. And what I try to tell people and explain this, and I'm taking it up for myself. It's my own, I'm preaching myself here, but like everything that you do, goat farming, real estate, you're a lawyer, you're a photographer, you're a storyteller. When all of those things come into alignment under the brand you.com or you.inc, that's when like your light truly shines. How would you explain that for yourself?
Yeah. Oh gosh. And I love using light as an analogy, light bulbs, lighthouses, light everything. When we launched our real estate brokerage, the story that I was telling was actually using light bulbs and talking about being a shining light in the community and hopefully planting other light bulbs. We literally went out into a field and I dug a hole with a shovel and buried a light bulb. And then we visually had it grow up into this glowing tree. And then recently we switched our brand to a new brand. And when I made that announcement, I actually went and plugged myself in front of a lighthouse, talking about being a shining light, being a safe harbor, being a place for people to come and go and watch and hopefully emulate with their own light. And I think if you're worried about what other people are doing more than just what you are doing and what your goal is, your light is not going to shine as bright, right? The moment that you just start focusing on the path that's laid out before you, your light is going to shine bright and people are going to see it. In order to showcase it, it's not that complicated. It's not as complicated as people think. You know, Gary V, love him or hate him, but he's been preaching for the last decade about putting out 12 pieces of content a day, you know, and I used to kind of like go against that grain, because I don't think we actually need to post that often, nor is it good for us to be posting that often. However, I will live in my stories online, you know, on Facebook and on Instagram. And that's a perfect place to showcase all the various different forms of crazy that you have going on in your day. And that's honestly, as somebody that's running a business or getting into marketing, that is where your gold is, because those people that are following your stories, those are your biggest fans, right? They're the greatest haters, and yet they're there in your stories. And you'll notice for yourself with your own media consumption, the stories of the people that you watch are usually the ones that you actually care about, that you want to see what they're up to, what are they doing. And it's the perfect place to engage with people as well and pop into their DMs, right? If you see something that they're doing, that they're personally showing. And it's the most authentic form of content is in the stories. And so for me, I stopped really caring about what I look like in those stories or what people are going to think, because they disappear in 24 hours.
It's great.
But it's the perfect place to experiment with showing the things that make you the most authentic. Like
100%.
You know, is there a coffee shop in town that you love? Gosh, put it in your stories, put what your favorite drink is, tag the coffee shop. What they're going to do is they're going to take that post, they're going to reshare it, and then you're going to pick up more people coming into your stories and on your page, and they're going to be following you because of something you authentically share an interest in.
I love that. And I love that you brought up stories because I have said that to other people too. I'm like, there's these little nuggets I want to give people, but they're not big enough for like a LinkedIn post. Like, again, sharing my favorite coffee shop downtown. I wouldn't make a LinkedIn post about that. I may not even make an Instagram post about that, but I will throw it on a story all day long. And that is a great way to solidify the brand, your brand in your story, where people really get to know and to like you. I love how you teed that up. Going back to what you mentioned earlier, you made me think about when you are not operating in your true authentic form, there will be a miss. A, it won't connect with people. B, you won't be shining your light. There's this talk of imposter syndrome, which is easy to do because when you're scrolling, you're seeing what everybody else is doing and saying, and it's like, I'm going to be like them. But as soon as you do that, now there's misalignment and your story isn't truly shining. I keep asking you this, but like, how would you articulate that? How would you explain that to somebody who's trying to understand that concept?
Gosh, it's called the copycat syndrome, really. I dealt with this a lot early on when I started doing a lot of content for real estate, because there just wasn't very many people out there that were doing video yet. And I had a lot of people that would literally come in and take the video that I had done and remake it word for word and remake it to themselves. Well, when they would post that, it would come across as really cheesy and inauthentic. A lot of times because they didn't realize that I was just riffing it when I would go on video. I rarely have a script when I come online. I rarely script things out, because for me, the most authentic form is whatever comes out of my mouth in the moment. And so if you're copying what other people are doing and it's not like a parody or a bit for you that was actually planned, which I love a good parody, but that's something different than just doing an imitation. You are not being true to your authentic self. And I really, truly believe that inside of each and every single one of us, God has given us a very unique identity that He wants us to shine. And until you step into that and figure out who you are. And sometimes it does take some deep work to figure out who you are. And, you know, comfort is not something that necessarily is going to come immediately when you are coming online like that. Sometimes you have to get outside of your comfort zone. Sometimes you get pushed outside of your comfort zone. But the more that you do that and the more that you show up as that person, who you are, even if you are in the midst of trying to figure out who you are, you know, you just, you know, named about 15 different careers that I've had, right? Well, the only reason why you know that I've had those is because I publicly talk about them and I display them, and there's no shame in that. Like, to me, a lot of people might have shame, like, hey, I went to law school, I graduated from law school, I was a lawyer, and then I left that to go like take pictures of people. You know, to me, there's no shame in that, because I'm just living life. I am living the life that I feel called to live and stepping into each new season as it's laid out in front of me. And unless you're willing to take the risk, a lot of times there will be no reward.
Well, a couple things. I love how you just kind of evolve and you go with it unapologetically. I think a lot of people would be afraid to ever share those things because it's going to look like I'm kind of going in 15 different directions, which it doesn't come off that way at all. You're just living, you know. One thing I've noticed, and maybe you can attest to this too, the more that I just put a camera in front of my face and share the good things, the bad things, and everything kind of in between, again, authenticity, the more that resonates with people, which we've talked about. For me personally, it accelerates the evolution process. Meaning, if I have a message inside, the more I share it, even if it's good stuff, like I want to save that for like a book, or I'm going to save that for like, you know, my paid subscribers. The more I just throw it all out there, not only am I shining more light, the rate at which my message evolves and gets deeper and even more authentic goes up. Have you experienced that as you've kind of shared and been as authentic as you are online?
Oh, without a doubt. Absolutely. And I think, you know, that's the thing that holds people back, is sometimes they don't want to receive feedback, right? They don't want to receive negative feedback. But it's that negative feedback often that can push us to be our best version, that can push us to be our best selves. And I think, you know, when we are in a world right now where we have such easy access to share the stories and to get feedback, you know, think about historically, as we've discussed, when people would tell stories back in the day, how did those stories get shared? Well, they got shared by other storytellers, right? People that heard the story and then went and told someone else and went and told someone else and went and told someone else. Now today, we don't necessarily need that, because our story can be shared on so many different platforms, and it's such a magnified audience compared to what people throughout the last, I mean, it's only been the last 15, 20 years really that we've had the ability to be able to share on such a massive scale on the story level. And so, of course, it's going to get amplified if you put that camera in your face. It has to, you know, good, bad, or ugly. It's going to get shared. And that's the only place where you're going to be able to grow, is by doing that.
But what a phenomenal opportunity, because love it or hate it, social media, like these little things here, you know, what a ticket for you to be free. And again, I'm getting like, this is my romantic feminine side here speaking, but because again, I'm very type A. I'm logistics. I'm all about grit, less about finesse. And as I get a little bit older and discover more about myself, I'm understanding this flow process of like really doing the inner work so I can be the best to everybody on the outside. But what I have noticed is when I share that's my ticket for me to be free. That's why, like, I even think about, like, I did TV for 12 years, for those of you watching this who are kind of live under a rock and you live from Minnesota, so you know this, but like, it was actually a really good fit for me because it gave me a platform to just go and share what's inside. TV was all riffing, kind of like you throw a camera on, you just riff, you know what I mean? Like it was impossible not to be authentic, because it was just me riffing for 4 minutes at a time. And then once TV went away, it's like I still needed the outlet, and I didn't understand why it felt so good. And now at 45, 46 years old, I'm realizing like it's good because it's good for my soul. It frees me when I share those things. It's freedom. At the same time, it's connecting at a higher rate than ever at a more authentic level and helping people with my story help them. It's an insanely great circle. I don't want to call it a circle of life, but like there's a circle of something going on there, and it's so good. And so again, I hear so many people like poo-pooing these things, but I'm like, what if this is actually the ticket for you to like really set yourself free and become that person that you were destined to be?
Yeah.
Crazy
Oh,
thought.
well, and we weren't accidentally born in this time frame.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. Our kids were not accidentally born in this time frame. God created us for such a time as this. This is the time frame that we as individuals were uniquely meant to be born and to be here. That's a popular little meme graphic that's been going around where people are complaining about how to raise kids in today's world with all of the technology around us. And it's a reminder to parents of, hey, your kids were meant to be born now. Like, don't begrudge the tools that we have available to us. The other night, we live on a farm. So we moved to a 120 acre farm in 2020. Hence the goat farm that he referenced.
You accidentally became the goat farmer in Minnesota.
We fell into some goats, about 20, and those turned into 85. But that's for another day. But the other night, the well went out. The well went out. And luckily, we had installed a hand pump on our well. And so we went down and we were pumping water to bring it back just to live for the night. And it really got me thinking around how thankful I am to live in these times with such easy access to all of the things, the grocery stores that we have access to, the technology that we have access to, even this phone. We did not have this like it is today 10 years ago. When I started filming, it was with a legit chunky, heavy camera.
Right.
I had to have a separate audio setup, and man, I encourage people, if they're just getting into marketing, don't even go that route. Just use this. There's so many people that are 7-figure business owners from this one little thing that they have access to. It's all what you do with it. We all have the same 24 hours in the day. We mostly have access to the same tools. It's just how do we use those to get the word out, to tell whatever story it is we're trying to sell, whether it is about marketing something or about sharing important information with people or encouraging others to be their best version. Man, it's a huge responsibility.
Yeah. Well, it's how you look at it. If you're going to be begrudging about it, you will hate it. And this life will be very difficult. And I lived in that camp for a while. Kind of had the old boomer mentality of like, but no disrespect to any boomers, but like, it's I've learned I've changed my mindset, and I want to talk about this a little bit. We don't have a ton of time left, but like how I view my life, how I view technology, how I view the world, that has radically helped me shift the entire trajectory of my life in the last 2.5 years. It's just how I look at it. And that's kind of what our discussion has been here just the last, couple of minutes. Where do you fall in the mindset game? Or maybe a better question is, how do you keep your mind dialed in? You mentioned kind of your morning routine, but like you have multiple businesses, a lot of things going on. Like, how do you keep your mind sharp and like plumb lined?
Yeah. So I have a very consistent morning routine, and it's not what people would usually think as a morning routine. Like most people, I think when they hear morning routine, they think, gotta get up, gotta hit the gym within a half an hour of getting up, gotta be really consistent with that. I know you're very consistent at hitting the gym. I am pretty consistent with working out as well, but the thing for me that has to come first every morning is quiet time, whether it is quiet time for me in the Word or whatever. And I've got to have my coffee every morning. I have my morning coffee, and I really try to fill my bucket during the day and have that quiet time. I notice that on the mornings I start out using my phone, and scrolling social, which is very normal for a lot of people to get up and spend their first half an hour, it doesn't take much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Twitter or X will send us that alert, and it's got a great hook, and you want to click on it. You want to read what's happening. But if you can keep yourself from doing that and really develop at least a half an hour of quiet time where you're filling a bucket, the rest of your day is going to go so much differently, even by the time that you do hit the gym. Or a lot of days I go for a 6-mile walk almost every day outside. I love to be outside. Even when it's freezing cold in Minnesota, I will put my boots on and I will walk outside. Because I do think that with as much as we are ingrained on technology and in technology all day long, if we can stay connected to being grounded in what we were meant to be grounded in, whether it is in the word or being outside or both things, the rest of the day, whatever comes, it'll work itself out. And if you have a really bad day or something doesn't quite go the way you thought it would, or you have a huge transition in your life, or you have a major job change or whatever, if you can stay consistent with those things, you yourself are going to be so much more equipped to handle all of the craziness that's thrown at you every single day.
Let's break that down for a second. So like you said, some quiet time. Are you listening to podcasts? You mentioned, you're reading the word. Yeah. Are you doing like affirmations? Like just like what's that look like for you to kind of get in that headspace?
Yeah, literally in the last probably 5 years, my main routine has been, I slowly go through every book of the Bible. Like I've been picking them, right? And so for me, if I turn on a podcast early in the morning, I've ruined my quiet time, because now I'm letting somebody else's thoughts into my thoughts. And that's fine and good. And podcasts, I love them. And I have a lot of favorite podcasts I listen to. But I usually save the podcast for driving around, times I'm driving, or when I'm at my workout. I don't listen to music. I listen to podcasts. Because to me, the working out time frame is more like working on myself. And so during that time, I know a lot of people have to listen to music to amp themselves up, to do their workouts or whatever. But I get more amped up by listening to like the business podcast, or I have a lot of conspiracy theory podcasts I love. That's for another
We're
day.
going to save that for another podcast. We'll dive deep in all of those. I love those. I love that. Dude, we could do a 4-hour round on just that topic.
We totally could. Absolutely.
That. It's interesting. I asked that question a lot to people. Everybody's routine's a little bit different. I did a morning gratitude walk for a long time. I'm the same way. Like if I just jump right into social media and work, I can pull it off, but it's not the same as if I have that time. Sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's 30. I've learned to give some flexibility to my life where it's like, it doesn't have to be 30 minutes. It just has to be enough to where I'm in the headspace to go. I'm an external processor. And so lots of times I'll just go for a walk and I'll just kind of talk through concepts and ideas. And again, that's my way of almost expressing myself, and it helps connect the dots and put me in the right headspace. And when I drive, it's not uncommon for me to go a 4-hour drive in total silence. And I'm just thinking, but they're not negative thoughts. They're not spiraling negativity, which is how I've lived. That's kind of the headspace I lived in for so many years. It's different. It's a little bit more, I don't want to say controlled, but like there's space in there. I'm more aware of the thoughts I have. And so again, I'm encouraging everybody who's listening to this, like whatever that looks like for you, like you've got to have that time to get grounded or centered or however you want to view it. But that just has to happen, because what I'm learning is that life is such a mind game. The tactics, business, processes are great. Disciplines are great. But if your headspace is out of whack, man, it's really hard. It's kind of like working out. It's really, you can't really over work out a bad diet. At the end of the day, you gotta have a good diet. And no matter how hard you're working out, if your diet's bad, it's going to be really difficult to get traction. And in my view, the mindset game of life is kind of like the diet to working out.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. And mindset looks different for everybody. And you have to have grace with yourself too. So if you fall off track or fall off schedule, well, then just get back on. Just get back on it. Everybody has a bad day or a cheat day on their diets or
Absolutely.
whatever.
Yeah. A lot of grace for yourself is necessary. I want to wind this down. I'm going to give you some rapid fire questions. We'll just do like a quick little Q&A and then we'll land this plane. Deal?
Yep.
All right. Besides the Bible, favorite book?
Lately, The Art of Impossible by Stephen Kotler.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I said I was going to rapid fire, but just explain for 20 seconds.
Have you read it? Have you
No.
ever read it? Oh gosh, man, you would love this book. He is a former journalist for adrenaline junkie sports enthusiasts, right? For all the extreme sports, snowboarders, wakeboarders, all the stuff. And he started realizing that as people get into flow state, which you referenced earlier, there's certain things that happen within the chemistry of our brain that causes us to have reactions and stay in flow state or fall out of flow state. It's a fantastic read. It's a fantastic read. It's also available on Audible. So
okay, shoot. All right. I'll check that out for sure. All right, back to rapid fire. All right, favorite person to follow on social media?
Oh, crud. That's a really hard one. Man, I lately have really loved following Alex Hormozy. I think what they're up to, he and his wife, with how they're running their businesses and how they just go and grind. They're doing things at an extreme level. They're so extreme, but it motivates me to be just a little bit better.
Yeah. You've been to so many conferences. You've heard great speakers. One that's just blown your mind.
Ed Milet is really probably one of the most gifted speakers in the whole world. He has just a way of bringing his audience in and telling stories, and just knowing how to savor each moment as he's delivering that keynote. As somebody that likes to speak, there's an entire art to speaking, and he has mastered it.
I haven't seen him in person, but it's on my list.
Oh,
speaking of lists, bucket list items that you haven't accomplished yet. Besides goat farming.
Yeah. I have never actually been to Europe. I have never been to Israel. I really would love to go to Israel, although I've told that right now is not a great time to go there. And I think just giving my kids those experiences too, of being able to travel the world. I feel like in the moment that we live in time, that's such a luxury that we do have to be able to just get on a plane and go somewhere. Those are on my bucket list items right now.
All right. Last one. Business idea that you haven't acted upon yet.
Starting my podcast.
All right. Hey, before we hit record, we said we might have to do a part 2. I think let's take each other up on that offer. Let's let some time settle and do a part 2. I would love to go deeper on some of these other ideas. We didn't even really get into brand building and all of that, but this has been a really, really treat for me and hopefully for everybody listening at home. So give people a shout out as to where people can find you and interact with your stuff and support your causes.
Sure. I'm super easy to find. Just find me on Instagram, Noelle the Minnesotan. And you can find me that way on Facebook too, but Instagram is easier.
You're as Minnesotan as they get. I noticed you put the little line above the O, so everybody gets the O.
Extra emphasis.
People who don't live in Minnesota won't get that, but learn.